Gerald, it's all yours, sir.
Thank you, sir. First of all, thanks for being here today. My name is Mark Welsh, and I am privileged, and I mean privileged, to serve as the interim president here at Texas A&M University. Not the kind of circumstances anybody would like for this transition to occur, of course, and I feel bad for everybody involved in that, but it's still a privilege to do this job. And I'm looking forward to talking to you today about kind of where we are, what I'm learning, and what I've been up to for the last few days. I now have a very distinguished 3-day history as the interim president at A&M. So I am not brilliant on every issue on campus yet. I'm not familiar with every program, but I'm working as hard as I can to catch up. And I'm glad to tell you what I know and what I don't know at this point, okay? Let me also tell you that I think the events of the last few days have highlighted a couple of things clearly to me over the last few weeks, actually. And that's that it's really important for even great institutions to occasionally step back and take a real honest look in the mirror. And I think that's where we are. And so we're looking at these recent incidents. As soon as we get all the facts available to us, we need to make decisions on how we prevent getting into these situations in the future. And then we need to kind of come together and rededicate ourselves to all the things that make A&M a great university. Remind ourselves that our core mission here is incredibly good. Remind ourselves that our core values here are incredibly meaningful, and then remind ourselves that the only way to keep moving in a positive direction with regard to those things is to communicate openly and transparently with each other and with everybody who supports us. And I'm absolutely committed to doing that. So it is a thrill to be here, and I'm glad to take any questions you might have.
Can we start with your meetings that are coming up with the Faculty Senate? What conversations have you had with faculty in the last couple of days since you've been named interim? And do you have an agenda yet on what you plan to discuss with the faculty and Senate coming up?
Yeah, I think anytime you have the sense of frustration and almost confusion in some cases about what's going on in the media these days related to Texas A&M, and when you have a group of world-class faculty and otherworldly staff and incredible students who are all thinking, okay, am I embarrassed? Am I frustrated? Am I mad? How am I feeling about this? The only way to get past it is to kind of dissect that a little bit, to get the thoughts of all those different groups and figure out what you need to go forward. So I am in a major listening mode right now. I have reached out to the leader of many of the student organizations, the faculty organizations, the staff organizations on campus. We're following up with meetings with executive committees of all those organizations. I just came from one, in fact, with one of the faculty organizations, and then we'll follow up with meetings with the full councils of those groups, whether it's Faculty Senate or University of English professors or Council of Principal Investigators or University Staff Council or Student Government Association. I want to talk to all of them. And the idea is to use them and their input to inform me on where I think we need to take this next. There are some things that are fairly straightforward. We need to first figure out, is communication breaking down? If so, where? And then fix that, because it's the lifeblood of success in organizations. The second thing we need to do is look at if there's any changes necessary to that communications game plan to prevent this from happening again and keeping everybody fully informed, especially when the news is bad, not just when it's good. And then finally, we're going to look hard at all the major activities that are going on around the university, and as you know, there are a lot of them over the last year, and make sure that we're on track with all those things, or do we need to adjust some of them, scope them differently, resource them differently, or is it time to look at a different approach to some of them if they're not working well? Because all of that has added to this frustration and confusion that is kind of centered in communication that hasn't reached everybody. That's the one message I'm getting over and over again, is we just don't know what's happening. And so that's goal number one for me.
When you talk about looking back at all the major activities over the last year or so, can you be more specific about, are we talking about initiatives and programs under former President Banks' leadership, or what exactly are you
this is not in any way meant to make an assessment of whether those programs are good or bad ideas or whether they're going to be tremendously successful or not. I don't know that we know yet. But there were some major organizational shifts. Remember that we reorganized the academic mission in a number of ways. We closed colleges, we consolidated them, we built up other colleges, we started new colleges and new programs. We also centralized all the functional support across the university, and then we went about starting to change and improve every process we could find to make it more user-friendly. And when you do all that at once, it's going to be a little chaotic. And so communication through that process is critically important in order to ensure success. And that's one area maybe we didn't quite keep a grip on as well as we could have, and we've got to fix that.
Interim Dean, Obviously, you mentioned only a few days in the position, but let's say you were in the position a month ago. What would have you done different in these situations here at Texas A&M?
Which situations? You're talking about the,
We could start with the journalism program
okay.
and
Let me start with the journalism program, which is back at Texas A&M. And I'm excited that it's back. I think it's a phenomenal idea to bring it back. I think it's going to be a great centerpiece of A&M going forward. I'm really excited about the journalism program being here. As far as the hiring for the journalism program, I don't know what happened. I haven't seen the facts of that, just like you haven't seen the facts of that. I do know the General Counsel was directed by the Chancellor and the Board of Regents to do an independent review of all the facts related to that case. I'm hoping that result is provided to all of us because they promised us it would be very shortly. And they've also promised to release all the evidence associated with that review so we can all see what happened. And until we have that, I have no facts. And in situations that get emotional, I think the best thing to do is to take a deep breath, try and keep the temperature down, although it's certainly frustrating and concerning. But let's wait till we get the facts on the table and then decide what it is that we need to fix before we get too upset and too high charged about fixing it.
What's the status of that today, of the journalism program? In terms of leadership, is there any effort or thought about reaching back out to Ms. McElroy, or is the university now looking for other leadership, either inside or outside of the university system?
The Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, I think, as you know, approved the journalism program as an academic program again last week, so it is back at Texas A&M. The College of Arts and Sciences and the department head, who was responsible for that hiring, are looking at continuing to bring candidates forward for consideration. I do not think there's consideration of going to Dr. McElroy.
You know, you kind of touched on it already, but for you personally, just what have the last 2 weeks been like since the leadership change, and why have you felt it important to go ahead and start reaching out to so many different groups on campus?
Well, first thing is I don't see much of a difference in terms of things I should be doing between being an acting and being an interim or being the president, and I'm the interim president. And so the university is going to form a search committee and do a nationwide search to find the permanent president. In the meantime, doing nothing, if we know there are issues we need to address, makes absolutely no sense to me. And so we need to continue to work to make A&M as great as it can be each and every day. And I think this is something we have to do to keep it moving forward. We are going to identify some problems with all this, things we need to fix. One of the incidents in the press, for example, highlighted the need to take a look at how do you protect our faculty members from an accusation and then very quick response without having all the facts available to you. And so we've directed a task force that our Vice President for Faculty Affairs is forming right now to look at faculty protections under situations that involve things like academic freedom or academic suspension or suspended or leave with pay, anything that can be seen as a disciplinary measure or a reaction to a faculty member's behavior. We need to be thoughtful about how we address those kind of decisions. I don't think anything was done wrong in this case, but I don't think we had the policy guidance in place to inform the people who made the decision.
Do you want the job permanently? Is your name in the ring to take this?
They haven't started the search committee yet.
But do you want it?
Do I want it?
Yeah.
Well, I
would you like to be president of the
what you're really
university?
asking is, do my wife and I want it?
What are y'all's thoughts
And I
on
haven't
that?
seen my wife since I started this job. She's been on vacation with our kids and grandkids.
If somebody suggested, hey, would you be willing to take this? Would you take the role permanent?
Well, I'd be privileged to be the president of Texas A&M University for one day. I love this place. I've loved it since I was 6 years old. And I love it for reasons that some of you will roll your eyes about and others will go, oh yeah, I get that. They're all the corny reasons. It's the things that you really value deep down is pride and patriotism and faith and family and loyalty and respect and honor. This place stands for that. And I first came here when I was about 6 years old with my dad, and that's how I have always seen Texas A&M. Anything I can do to help this university, I would be honored to do.
Could you rewind back to the night that you got the call from the chancellor and you made the decision? It sounds like almost immediately. What's going through your head? Why do you make such a life-changing decision so quickly and accept an interim position?
Sure. The chancellor called me on a Thursday evening, and it was a complete surprise. And the first thing he asked me was, "Are you sitting down?" And I said, "Well, yes, actually." He goes, "Well, I would like you to do this. Would you be willing to do it?" The first thing that went through my head is I need to talk to Betty about this. And then I realized Betty was at a board meeting in our living room, actually, for a local charitable board that she sits on. And I thought, if I pull her out of there and talk to her about this, she will never be able to go back and act like nothing's going on. So I didn't ask her. And I said yes, because I know that's what she would have wanted. My wife is magic, and she loves this place like I do because she has seen what it's done for our 4 children. They're all Aggies, and they are better people, they're better citizens, they're better moms, dads, husbands, wives, because this place reinforced the values that we tried to put into them. So I knew she'd be excited about it. And the big reason I said yes is because I could sense my dad going, just say yes. He was a class of 46 Aggie. He credited Texas A&M with everything good in his life. And he would be incredibly proud that I tried. Because that's all he told me to ever do. Do your best, try hard, help the people who need it, do what you think is right. And I think this was the right thing to do.
What do you think your military experience, how that prepared you for this?
I don't know that it's so much the military experience, except the correlation with the core values is very strong. It's maybe more my organizational experience. I've led organizations from very small to very large. The last one had almost 700,000 people in it, so I'm used to global operations. I'm used to big organizations. I understand management and extended management. I think that's a skill set that can be useful in this job. I am a huge fan of people, and I care. That sounds a little egotistical, and I apologize for that, but I care. You don't know anybody who cares more than I do about everybody's opportunity, about their success, about the tools we give them, about the training and education we provide, about their dreams and how we help them get there. I just do. That's a product of my mom and dad. I can't get rid of it.
Is that part of the message you have forwarded to your inner circle, your new inner circle?
I actually think that's something you have to prove to them. I don't think saying it means anything. I think they'll either pick it up over time or they won't.
Can I ask about your work as dean of the school? Because a lot of the concern coming from faculty, especially after the things that happened at UTMB, there's the talk and concern about outside political influence. That's kept coming up.
Right.
As you work as the dean, did you ever experience that yourself? And is that personally, not as interim president, but personally as the dean over there, is that something that you have experienced and something you're concerned about in your profession?
No. In the past 7 years, there wasn't even a hint of that. From anywhere. From the Board of Regents, from the Chancellor, from the University President, from nobody. We were allowed to do our job.
Can we go back to the Alonzo incident? I mean, how should universities react when state lawmakers call and ask them to investigate faculty members?
Well, I think this is a little trite, but I think it completely depends on the situation. The concern for us on the Alonzo incident is that a decision was made relatively quickly for reasons I think were intended to be the right reasons to put her on paid leave. And the intent was to try and protect her a little bit and to protect the university and then do an investigation. That decision was not made by anybody outside of Texas A&M. That was made by somebody who works for Texas A&M University. And I don't think it was a bad decision. It was a decision that was not guided by any specific policy and guidance that we have in our system right now. And we need to fix that so that we can make sure we do this in a thoughtful way with better support for the decision maker and for Dr. Alonzo, which is why we formed a task force to take a look at faculty protections in all events, incidents related to academic freedom, to faculty suspension, to faculty discipline, whatever it might be. We need to have very clear guidance that you will go through these offices and these decision makers in order to make that call, so that it's measured, it's thoughtful, and we reach the right decision with all the right people in the discussion. That's what I learned from the Dr. Alonzo case. Now, let me tell you what I've heard about Dr. Alonzo. She is a class act. She's a really valued professor in her department. She handled all of this with incredible grace when the incident first happened, and right now she probably just doesn't like all the attention anymore. But she's been remarkable through all this, I believe.
You know, you've mentioned several times right here just your love for A&M and kind of what it stands for. You know, given everything that's happened the last few weeks, do you feel like A&M's reputation has kind of been damaged?
Well, probably in some circles. I think anytime you get bad publicity, there are people who are going to attack you. It's just kind of the way of the world these days. But let me tell you what these incidents have not done. They cannot undo the great work that's going on everywhere else at Texas A&M. It cannot replace our view of who we are as an institution. You can't do that. There are 10,000 great things going on somewhere related to Texas A&M University right now. There are great people doing those things, great faculty, great staff, and phenomenal students. Those stories really are the overwhelming story of Texas A&M. That's the story I see. Now, we shouldn't ignore anything that's negative news. I mean, your job is to report it, our job is to take it, digest it, figure out how to make a difference in changing the things that went wrong. But let's not get distracted by these incidents as being, oh, that's Texas A&M. No, it's not. It's the hundreds of student organizations doing great work in the community. It's our student leadership who are incredibly mature and capable. It's a world-class faculty spending over $1 billion a year on research expenditures to change the world, and they're doing it right now. That's Texas A&M. And we can't afford to lose track of that.
Would like to get your thoughts and opinions on diversity, equity, inclusion. We know the new law was passed, and that touches a little bit on what happened with Professor McElroy and her claims as to why she turned down the contract. What are your thoughts on the law that passed and what A&M's doing, and what is A&M doing moving forward in making sure that the university is complying with what now the state requires in terms of DEI?
Well, we're waiting on the guidance from the Texas A&M system, university system, that is going to talk to us about, okay, here's the law from State Bill 17, and here is what that means to us in the Texas A&M university system. We have not seen that yet, and so I'm not going to comment on specifics because I don't know the specifics yet of what will be in that guidance. But once we have that guidance, we will of course comply with the law. But I don't think anybody, not the Board of Regents, not the Chancellor, certainly nobody in the university believes that the things that prepare our students to go operate in the world that they're going to step into and to do so successfully, we'll still be teaching in the classroom. State Bill 17 doesn't affect that. We will still be doing research on those issues so we can inform solutions for communities, state, and the nation and the world. And State Bill 17 specifically excludes those things, so we can keep doing that stuff. And all the things that deal with acceptance of difference in all its forms and valuing difference in all its forms, they'll still be happening here every day. We're still bringing in military veterans that we need to incorporate into A&M in a welcoming way. We're still bringing in international students. We're bringing in underrepresented minority students. How they come together, work together, solve issues, communicate better, all that is going to continue. It can't stop. And so I don't think this will affect the success of Texas A&M in this regard. We'll have to see what the specific details are. We'll have to change the way we do business in some ways, I'm sure, to comply with the law. But I'm confident that this isn't going to change the general direction we're headed.
You know,
How does this transition affect the ongoing searches for deans, and now we have a dean position open at Bush School?
Yeah, full speed ahead. Yeah, by the way, my replacement at the Bush School, the acting dean, will be Dr. Frank Ashley, who is an African-American educator of 37 years here at A&M and a member of the University of Alabama's College of Education Hall of Fame. So you want to look for, an example of excellence and difference, go talk to Frank Ashley. But I think that we are not slowing down. That's the big message. So the dean searches are ongoing, full speed ahead. The department head searches that are ongoing, don't stop, keep moving. Waiting for a new permanent president is not a good plan for us, especially if the problem is communication, a little bit of frustration and confusion. We need permanent leadership. We need a steady hand in these organizations, and the only way to do that is to go hire the best people we can find, and that's the process we're in right now.
You know, there's a number of folks that have asked for transparency over the events that have happened, and as the investigation continues, and the Board of Regents made it clear they want these findings made public. Is that a good thing to try and provide that transparency when all this is settled?
Integrity is still one of the core values. Yeah, I think it's the only thing. If whatever we screwed up, we need to say we did it, and here's what we can do to do better. If you try and hide it, it becomes a bigger story than it was before. Right now, there's something happened that wasn't right. Let's all figure out what it was. Let's move on.
What is your reaction to Dan Patrick's op-ed today?
I like the fact that the Lieutenant Governor put his voice out there. He said what he thought, which is everybody's right. And so I think it's another great, it gives our faculty something to talk about when we start having these discussions about academic freedom. By the way, let me tell you how I think about academic freedom. First of all, it's a constitutional right under the First Amendment. The Supreme Court has reaffirmed that multiple times. So we believe in academic freedom here, which means that our professors are free to select the topics they need to discuss in a classroom while they're teaching to fully explain issues to students. That make sense? Now there's probably whatever they realistically believe to be required to explain these issues to students, it falls under academic freedom. And I'll defend that. I mean, with every breath. They also have the freedom to do research on areas of their choice and to choose the type of research they do in order to better educate, inspire, and apply for future generations the results of this research. And I'll defend that with every breath. Those two things, by the way, are completely excluded from State Bill 17, and they fall under the umbrella of academic freedom. I believe the Board of Regents, the Chancellor, everybody in the University Administration, we all stand together on the fact that we embrace that. Nobody is questioning whether that should be happening here.
Moving forward, what is your directives as far as dealing with the media? We know that your predecessor was not big on talking with us. She only spoke to us once during her tenure. So what is your approach to moving forward as having a good relationship with the local journalism community?
Well, my experience has been in many other organizations that the story is going to be told. I would much rather have the story include our perspective than not include our perspective. Whether the story is positive or negative, it doesn't matter to me. I think this relationship for an institution the size of Texas A&M is critically important. I'll be available. And we need to talk. You need to hear the other side of some stories. You need to hear the good news, not just the bad news. And I think we owe you the straight scoop. And anytime I can give it to you, I'll give it to you. Most cases when I can't, it's not because I don't want to, it's because I don't have it yet. We may be waiting on information as we are right now, for example, in one incident with Dr. McElroy. And so this is important to me.
An organization that's come up in recent news stories in both print and TV has been this Rotor Association. I know President Banks had some contacts with that in meetings. What's your relationship with them? What do you know of the group? What's your thoughts?
Don't know. Read about it. I don't know the Rotor Association, and they're not the only one. There are a number of associations out there. They're all passionate about Texas A&M. I know that. And I love passion in all its forms, even when it's not always useful. But I don't know the Rotor Association. I really can't comment on that.
You visited with the Board of Regents on Sunday night without revealing state secrets. How did that conversation go?
Very well, I thought. I think I was very impressed by the true commitment, as they said in their statement that came out after, to put the facts out there and let everybody know what happened once this investigation is complete. Because they're committed to making sure we get everything right and we move forward. The Board of Regents are a collection of individuals who have a voice as a group, but each one of them is passionate about this university. And I love that, actually. And then you've got a chancellor here in the A&M system who's also passionate about this university. And they all have an independent voice that they can use if they so choose, but collectively they become a very powerful force for good for Texas A&M University. But I was very impressed by how united they are in their commitment to make sure the facts are shared.
Do you have any concerns about, the national media coverage of all this having an impact on student recruitment across the country? Just kind of how incoming freshmen view this, maybe seniors in high school view this as they're getting their applications out?
Sure. Yeah, we'd be crazy not to think about that. And will it have an impact? Probably. But it'll have more of an impact if we don't tell the other side of the story, not related to the incident itself, but about Texas A&M. And that's where you guys do a wonderful job of that. I'm not blowing smoke at you. You do. You do a wonderful job of telling this story, good and bad. And I am confident that over time, the good far, far, far outweighs the bad. And so telling the story matters to us.
Speaking about reputation, whether it be with the faculty inside the journalism department or across the university system, and then nationally, as Morgan just mentioned, do you have a specific maybe plan or a couple ways that you think you'll be able to repair that relationship, whether it be here or nationally, or kind of just letting the good outweigh the bad, as you mentioned?
Well, I think that the department head who's doing the hiring and the professors who are going to be the journalism department will have a very good plan for how they're going to move forward and make this a great program for students. I met with a group of students this morning, 3 of whom are excited about becoming part of the journalism program, and they're fired up. And so I think all that will naturally happen as long as we provide the resources they need, just like every other academic program here, to be successful. The great thing about the journalism program is now we can use you guys, we can use the expertise of our faculty, and we can bring in outside sources to talk to our students about not just the tool set required to be great journalists, or great photographers, or great whatever it is in the profession, but also what are the ethics required that you need to take with you as part of your professional toolkit when you go out into this business, because you guys know better than I do, it's a tough business. And there are all kinds of opportunities for you, and you've got to be selective to make sure you go someplace you're comfortable working. And I think we can teach students that here. We can bring in role models from everywhere. I was talking to 2 former friends, they're not former friends, they're friends, and they work for CNN, they have for years, and said, look, how about coming down here and helping us make this journalism program a good news story for a change by coming down sometime in the next year and visit, and I'll try and connect them to the department. And these are people everybody would really enjoy hearing from. And would have an incredible impact on our students. So it's about making the program successful. And once they're on that trail, they'll handle it. They're very capable.
The Mark Welsh situation didn't appear to be an anomaly. Faculty have been expressing concerns about the decisions the administration made under Banks, particularly around direction and reorganization. Are you going to take a look at all of those changes and whether they were the right move?
Yeah, my near-term task, just Mark's task list. Number 1, communicate, listen, get feedback, and make sure I understand what people think the problems and the issues are or were, and where it's working really well, because it is working really well in lots of areas. Second thing is adjust the communications game plan to fix those communications shortfalls where we find them. And the third piece is to look at all the major moving parts for the last year and do a quick look assessment of how they're going. Are these all on track? Okay, we'll categorize them as doing well, keep rolling, we're good. There may be another group that's struggling a little bit, and maybe it's not quite on the timeline, or maybe they're short of resources, and look at those in terms of how we can adjust them to make them successful. Or do we need to rescope them or rescale them? And then there may be another group, or even if it's just one project, that's struggling, really struggling, and now we have tough decisions to make on that program. You know, can we fix it? Can we rescope it? Can we reorient it? Or what do we need to do to either make it successful or to let it go? So I think we have a quick review to do. There's been a big assessment of all the different moving parts. We're waiting on that report. That was done over the last couple of months. I haven't seen it yet. It's not back to us. But I need to do another quick assessment with kind of a small team just to get a feel for how do we think it's going, and then do deep dives into the ones that are struggling. In that regard, yeah, we're going to take a look at it. But no, it doesn't mean we're going to change everything. Let's take a look at it. Let's get the facts again, and then decide what we need to do next.
This may be a better question for the Board of Regents, but is there kind of a timeline on finding the permanent president of the university? Is
That's a
it
great question
weeks
for
or
the Board of
months?
Regents. Yeah, I won't be
Okay.
involved in setting that at all.
In 2001, there was a comprehensive consultant report done where Dr. Banks brought out new initiatives. Is that plan still going to move forward, or are you all going to go back and revise
Those
it?
are all the items on that are part of this quick look we're going to look at. But yeah, my assumption is most of those things will still keep going forward. We're going to take a look at each of them and make sure that we're doing them the right way. And a lot of the confusion and frustration in the communications are related to some of those things. And so we really do need to go and make sure, if nothing else, we get the facts right and share it with everybody so they know where they stand.
Is there anything you'd like to say personally to Professor McElroy or Joy Alonso on behalf of the university?
Well, I think everybody at Texas A&M, I would hope everybody at Texas A&M would offer an apology to Dr. McElroy. And no matter what happened, this didn't go well. And Dr. McElroy, by all accounts, is an incredibly accomplished scholar. She's an incredibly accomplished journalist, and she's a great Aggie, from what I hear. And so I would hope that she understands that we are sorry for what happened. I think the other, for Dr. Alonso, I think Dr. Alonso knows that nobody was thinking she had done anything wrong. And the way everything happened when it first occurred, I don't know if it was good or bad. I just don't know. But it wasn't evilly intended, certainly. And so my understanding is that she and the official involved have been in communication this whole time, and that they have to have a great relationship. And she was pretty comfortable with where things ended up. Although certainly, I'm sure she would have liked to avoid the embarrassment of being put on leave. And so, in terms of not having the right policy structure in place to advise our decision makers, I'll apologize for that because that's my fault.
We're going to have one last question, and then we're going to wrap up with closing comments.
Just considering school starting in the next couple of weeks, Texas A&M will be, the campus will be full. What can students expect from you as president moving forward, as well as what can journalism students expect without having a department head?
Yeah, I think the journalism students are going to be fine. They've still got faculty members teaching courses. They'll keep moving forward, and their department head will join along the way. And so they'll kind of help bring their department head on board and make them feel welcome. So I don't think that's going to be a major issue. Although it's not ideal, it's not a negative. I think you're actually leading into what would be my closing comments with the first part of your question. Because we're about to receive a whole bunch of students back here at Texas A&M, and the place is going to all of a sudden come back to life in a big way. Largest freshman class ever. I mean, incredible collection of people from all over the place. All those dreams that now come here to kind of prepare. It is a huge responsibility for us here. It's a huge energy jolt, I think, to the university. And it's why our faculty are here. It's why our staff are here. It's why you guys are here. It gives Texas A&M kind of a heart and soul and breath. And so I can't wait for them to get back. It's really, really a good time of year.
Thank you for your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you all for being here today. I look forward to